Taylor Swift is known for her witty songwriter and openness about her life. She has achieved success in only a few years despite her young age. Her music often portrays her as an icon of foolishness, often due to the mistakes she makes in relationships and life itself. One of Taylor Swift's biggest songs, Blank Space, portrays her as a foolish one in a relationship, quickly getting into and out of a relationship without feeling much of anything. It ends short and swift, like a one-night stand. Taylor Swift's song Jump Then Fall also depicts her as somebody who is prone to making foolish decisions, throwing caution to the wind as she jumps in with hopes that she'll land safely. Unfortunately, sometimes, she falls hard. Another of her songs, You Belong With Me, also points out the foolishness Taylor intends with her decisions, as she puts her heart on the line for someone who is already taken. She eventually gets her heart broken in the process. In her song, The Story of Us, Taylor Swift is once again foolish in her decisions, as she continues to have hopes that maybe things will work out despite having multiple warning signs that it won't. Her song Mean To is a representation of her foolishness, as she stands up to people's bullying. She gives the bullies attention and only helps fuel the fire. By winning the argument, she herself is still left in a sorry state. The Way I Loved You portrays Taylor Swift's foolishness in relationships again. Instead of having a healthy, happy relationship, she is caught up in a whirlwind of passion and then pain, extreme highs and lows. Dear John suggests that Taylor Swift was foolish in a relationship, setting herself up for heartbreak. She had over-idealized the situation, wanting it to stay the same and not accepting that nobody can have it all in a romantic relationship. Taylor Swift's song The Other Side of the Door references her foolishness in terms of timing. She slammed the door on their relationship, hoping that by going to extremes she could somehow control the situation. In Mine, Taylor Swift speaks of how foolish she was in the relationship and that even though she made a lot of wrong decisions, the person she was in love with was still worth it. Sad Beautiful Tragic is another of her songs that shows her impulsive and foolish behavior, with her making life decisions without thought and then having them all backfire. The thing with Taylor Swift is that her foolish behavior isn't because of a lack of sense, it's because she is impulsive and takes a huge risk even when it's not required of her. The song White Horse by Taylor Swift talks of her expectations of how her happy ever after should look like and how foolish she had been as she had had no idea that it can be anything different. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together talks of how foolish she was when she was in love and how she was foolish with believing in them despite them not proving reliable. Tracking her songs, another one that represents her foolishness is Shake It Off, as it talks of how foolish she was in all her decisions and how she knows that she has to keep on going, no matter how sometimes terrible her choices are. Her song Enchanted also talks about how foolish she had been to trust this person completely and about all the hopes and fantasies she had with him and how everyone ultimately has not gone according to plans. Taylor Swift has often been portrayed as the fool in her songs and is a reflection of many of her lessons in life. She's been one to make rash decisions and act impulsively without thinking of the consequences. with lyrics like "Gave you everything I had, and you tossed it in the trash" from the song Love Story. Taylor Swift speaks of her foolishness in giving away her all to the wrong people. Her song Breathe 2 shows her sometimes foolish way of dealing with her problems. Instead of talking them through, she tends to escape them. In the song Speak Now, Taylor Swift talks of how foolish she was to have had great expectations in a relationship. She kept going against all odds, dreaming of a happily ever after and kept wishing things would work out. Starlight 2 is another song where Taylor Swift speaks of her foolishness in expecting too much in a relationship. She had kept on believing whereas the other person had given up, with her suffering in the process. In The Best Day, Taylor Swift speaks of how foolish she was to assume that a person couldn't hurt her. She loved them with all her heart, but it was foolish of her to not think of what would come after that. Tim McGraw is another one of her foolish songs, as it speaks of how she had taken somebody for granted, thinking they'd be hers forever only to realize that people can come and go, just like summer. Fearless is another one of her foolish songs, with Taylor Swift getting herself into situations she had no control over. She lacked fear, and this time it was too late to back out. In Song 15, Taylor Swift talks of how foolish and naive she was in trusting somebody completely and not being the least bit skeptic of them.